I am not ill. Piers read aloud. I have never been ill. I am kept in the north attic of this house, and the door is locked at 7 and unlocked at 7, and I am in my 17th year. And if you are a stranger reading this, then God has been better to me than my father's wife. Good heavens, said Mr. Dunnage. Where was it? In the spine of a book, sewn in under the pastedown. The Duke of Marchbourne turned the half-sheet over. It had been folded so long that the creases had gone soft as cloth. Lot 409, Fenwick Hall, sold with the rest of the library in the spring of 1812. It has been on my shelf at Marchbourne for 8 years, and I bought it because I wanted the plates. And the date on the letter, the 4th of October, 1811. It is signed. Alethea Fenwick. He read the last lines again, though he already had them by heart. My stepmother tells the county I am gone to Lisbon for my health. I write the Lisbon letters myself. She stands over me while I do it. Whoever you are, I am not mad and I am not dead, and I have counted 11 months. 11 months in 1811, he said. Your Grace, if that child was telling the truth, it is 9 years. 9 years in June. The Duke of Marchbourne was to carry that half-sheet in his breast pocket for 11 weeks. In the 11th he would stand at the back of a public room and hear a woman say aloud that she did not know whether any living soul had ever opened her letter and would understand. All at once and far too late, that 3 of those weeks were his doing, that he had held her only voice in the world as if it were a piece of evidence belonging to him, and that the bill for his caution was not going to be presented to him, but to her. What is the law? He asked. The law is against you. Dunnage set down his cup. Miss Fenwick was found a lunatic by certificate in 1810. I have had the entry looked out this morning. 2 physicians sworn before 2 magistrates. In the eye of the law she is a person incapable, and her stepmother, as her nearest relation resident, has the keeping of her. Lady Ottoline may confine her in her own house or send her to a licensed house, and neither is an offence. If you go into that hall and accuse her ladyship of it, she will agree with you. Then what undoes it? An inquisition, a commission out of Chancery, a jury of 12, and the lady herself in the room to be examined by them. Only that. And it is not to be had for the asking, and if her ladyship gets wind of it before the writ is out, she may lawfully remove her stepdaughter to any licensed house in England, and your Grace may spend a year finding out which. Then she is not to get wind of it, he said. He came to Fenwick Hall on the 11th of April, in the character of a gentleman who collects books, which had the advantage of being true. Your Grace is very good to come so far for a few shelves of my late husband's books. I bought the greater part of the library in 1812. I am told the medical and the divinity were kept back. They were kept back because nobody would give a fair price for them. You may have them all and welcome. She poured. You must forgive the house. We are quiet here. I have had a great deal of sorrow. I am sorry to hear it, madam. My husband 9 years dead and my stepdaughter well. Lady Ottoline arranged her sorrow on her face the way another woman arranges a shawl. Alethea is at Lisbon and has been these 9 years for her health. The climate agrees with her. Nothing here ever did. She writes to me, poor creature, every quarter. She must be much missed. She is. The lady's eyes did not move. It is a great expense, your Grace, keeping a daughter abroad, but one does not count it. He was given the state bedroom and a footman with a squint, and at 9 that evening he walked out into the courtyard to look at the elevation of the house, as book buyers do. The east front was regular and handsome. The north wing was shut, the shutters closed on the 2 upper floors, and above them, under the gutter, 4 attic windows. 3 were black. The 4th had a candle in it, and the candle was standing on the sill, not on a table, set there deliberately, at the very edge of the glass, where a person passing in the courtyard might see it and nobody in the house could. He stood and looked at it until the cold came through his coat. Then a woman's shadow crossed it once, and the light went out, and a bolt went over somewhere far above him with a sound like a dropped book. Piers went in and asked, pleasantly, whether the north attics were used for anything, since the library boxes might be stored there. They are not, said Lady Ottoline. The floor is unsafe. Nobody goes up. I have had the stair door locked for years, and I keep the key myself, because a house with servants in it is a house with thieves in it. Very prudent, madam. I am always prudent, she said. Your Grace will find the county thinks me a saint. I do not contradict them. It saves argument. He could not force the door. He could not lawfully take her out of it. He could not even say her name at breakfast. And the candle on the sill said, as plainly as if she had leaned out and called it down to him, I am still here, and I am counting. If you have come to be kind to me, said the voice behind the glass, I would rather you went away. I have had 9 years to arrange myself, and I cannot do it twice. Piers had crossed 40 feet of wet lead in his stockinged feet to reach that window at 1 in the morning. With the rooks stirring in the elms and a lantern he had not dared to light. The casement was barred on the inside with an iron rod let into the frame. Behind it he could see nothing but the shape of a head against a paler dark. A pause. Who are you? Marchbourne. I bought your father's library in 1812. Then you have my Buffon and my Girard's Herbal and a great deal of very dull divinity. The voice steadied as it went. Say something only the owner of those books could say. There is a wine stain on the frontispiece of the 2nd volume of the Buffon, and somebody has drawn a spider in the margin at page 90. That was me. I was 11, and it was a very good spider. The shadow moved closer, and now he could make a hand on the sill thin, with the nails cut short. Well, your Grace, you are either the answer to 9 years of praying or the cleverest thing my stepmother has ever done, and I am afraid I have to treat you as the second until you prove yourself the first. That is exactly what I should do in your place. I don't. He told her in a whisper in 10 minutes. Dunnage, the law, the certificate of 1810, the 2 physicians, the jury that could undo it, the writ that must be got quietly. And what brought you? Alethea said, when he had finished, 9 years, your Grace. Why this April? Piers had his hand on the letter through the cloth of his coat, and Dunnage's voice in his ear. She must not be able to say she was told of it. She must not be able to be led, and he was to think about the next 4 seconds for the rest of his life. Something came into my hands in March. What thing? I would rather not say yet. The silence behind the glass had a different quality after that. When she spoke again her voice was businesslike, and it was that, more than anything, which took the ground out from under him. Then listen, because we have perhaps a quarter of an hour before the maid comes past the stair door. My stepmother is not clever, your Grace. She is patient, which the county mistakes for cleverness. Everything rests on Lisbon. If Lisbon breaks, she has nothing but the certificate, and a certificate can be examined. You write the Lisbon letters. I have written 36 of them. She stands at my shoulder and tells me what to say and takes them away to be sent up to town and posted on from there. A breath. She has never once read one to the end. She reads the first 3 lines and looks for anything about this house, and there never is, so she folds it. So I have dated every letter I ever wrote her on a day when the foul-mouthed packet did not sail. 36. I had a newspaper in the first year. It came round a pot of jam, and I have it still, and it gave the packet days for the whole of the year, the 5th and the 20th, and I worked the rest out from the almanac at the back of my prayer book. 9 years of a woman writing from Lisbon on days when nothing left Lisbon. Any post office clerk in England can swear to it in 5 minutes. She has been carrying the proof of it about the county in her own reticule and showing it to the vicar. A dry pause. It is the only revenge I have been able to afford, and I have taken it very slowly. Miss Fenwick, said Piers, may I do something rash and small at dinner tomorrow? You may do something small. She told him what to say. He said it the following evening, before 9 people over the 2nd course, in the voice of a man making conversation. Lady Otterline, I am ashamed to say I have never written to Miss Fenwick about her father's books. Half of them are hers by right, and I should like to send her the catalogue. What is the direction at Lisbon? The letters go through my agent in town, said Lady Otterline. Ah, but the street, madam. I have a cousin in the wine trade there. He is forever offering to carry parcels. The Rua Formosa, said Lady Otterline. Lady Otterline Vane looked at him for perhaps 2 seconds. Something went across her face like a shutter going up and coming down again. At the sideboard, a small elderly servant with a face like a walnut set down a dish of asparagus so hard that it rang, and did not apologize and went out. Piers found her in the passage 20 minutes later, and she looked at him, and he looked at her, and neither of them said one word about anything. "Suki Ma," she said. "I nursed her mother. I have been 31 years in this house, and I am not allowed above the second floor. Do you go?" "Every Sunday, when her ladyship is at church," said Suki Ma. "There is a loose board on the stair landing, and I put things through the gap in the panelling where the old bell wire ran. Thread, pencil, once an orange, which took some doing." She lifted her chin. "You will not tell me you're her cousin from Lisbon, then?" "No," she said. "The last man that lied to me about that girl was a doctor." That night Piers went back along the leads and told the window everything, and heard Alethea Fenwick laugh, once, low, cracked and rusty sound. The laugh of a person who has not had occasion in a long while, and found that he was standing 40 feet above a stone courtyard in his stocking feet, at 2 in the morning, in the middle of April, grinning like a fool at a bar of iron, and that he could not for the life of him have explained to Dunwich, or to his mother, or to any court in England, what had just happened to him. "Mind the third laugh," Alethea said. "It has been going for 4 years, and I should hate you to be the one it gives way under." It was the Sunday after. At 11:15, with Lady Ottoline's carriage gone down the avenue to church, and Suki Ma keeping the yard door, and Piers came up through the hole where the old bell wire panel had been, with the chisel still in his hand, and stood upright in the north attic of Fenwick Hall for the first time. It was long and low and clean. That was the thing he had not expected. It was scrubbed. A bed, a chair, a deal table under the window, a tin tray with a plate on it, a chip jug, books in a stack that reached his knee, a candle end on the sill in a saucer, and behind the head of the bed, where the plaster came down to meet the floor, 9 years of days scratched in rows of 5 with a nail, block after block after block, going away into the dark under the eaves. "You may say something," said Alethea. "Most people would. How many?" 3,281 this morning. "I am 3 days out somewhere in 1815. She stood by the table with her hands behind her back, in a made-over grey dress, and let him look at her, because there was no help for it, and she had decided long ago how it would be done. "You had better get it over with. It was the smallpox in the summer I was 16. That is why I was put up here in the first place, for the infection, and my father already 3 months dead, and it is why she was able to keep me here afterward, because when I came out of the fever I looked like this, and she said, quite reasonably, that no one would want to look at me, and for about a year I agreed with her." Piers said. "That was a lie told to a sick girl of 16 by a woman who wanted her estate." "Yes, I know that now. It took me a good while." She lifted her chin a fraction. "I do not want to be told I am handsome, Your Grace. It would be the second lie told in this room, and I have only just got rid of the first. Then I shall tell you something else. In 11 weeks I have not been able to stop thinking about a person I had never seen, because of 11 lines she wrote when she was 16, and I am now standing in her room, and the only thing that has changed is that I am more afraid of her opinion than I was yesterday." "Sit down," she said. "The chair is sound. Now attend, because I have been thinking about this since Thursday, and you will want to argue with me, and you will lose. Say it. You are going to propose taking me out today. Down the stair, into your carriage, and away to your mother or your aunt, or some respectable woman with a house in town." I had got as far as the carriage. "It would be the worst thing you could do. In law I am a lunatic, and she is my keeper. If she wakes and I am gone, she need not follow me herself. She has only to swear an information that a person incapable has been carried off by a gentleman, and every constable between here and the sea is looking for a duke with a madwoman in his carriage." Alethea sat down on the edge of the bed. "They would take me back, and it would not be an attic next time. It would be a licensed house at £40 a year where nobody knows my face. I have had 9 years to think of every way out of this room." "Then what?" "The jury. The thing your attorney said. I want 12 men in a public room, and I want to be examined in front of them, and I want the whole county there, the vicar and Mrs. Fladgate, and every woman who has sat in her drawing room these 9 years being sorry about Lisbon. I do not want to be got out, Your Grace. I want to be let out, in writing by law. where she cannot follow me with a certificate for the rest of my life. She smoothed the coverlet. It is slower. I know precisely how much slower. I have done the arithmetic in days. And until then you stay in this room. Until then I stay in this room, said Alethea, and you go on buying books very slowly. On the 2nd of May, Dunnage's letter came from London, and Piers read it standing in the courtyard where the candle had been. Lady Ottoline Vane had, on the 28th of April, presented a petition. She prayed to be appointed committee of the person and of the estate of Alethea Fenwick, spinster, a lunatic, and she supported it with the certificate of 1810, with an affidavit of her own, and with a bundle of letters, produced as evidence of the said lunatic's disordered mind. Purporting to be written from Lisbon over 9 years. She had chosen her moment, Dunnage wrote with great care. Under the will of the late Sir Marcus Fenwick, the estate vested in his daughter, absolutely upon her attaining the age of 25. Miss Fenwick would be 25 on the 9th of June. If the committee were appointed before that day, the whole of Fenwick, the house, the land, the rents, the girl herself, would pass into her stepmother's hands, not for 9 years more, but for life. 9 years had a number on it at last, and the number was 38 days. Open it at page 90, Piers said, and tell me whether it is as good as you remember. It is a terrible spider, she said. It has 9 legs. I counted 7. Then you cannot count, and I have been wasting my instruction. She put her hand flat on the page the way a person does on a gravestone. 13 years since I touched this book. Thank you. That is all I intend to say about it, so do not stand there looking pleased with yourself. It was the 17th of May and warm at last, and the attic smelled of hot slate. 23 days remained. Dunnage had the drafts, and Alethea had gone through every paper twice and corrected 2 errors in the schedule of her father's rents, in pencil, in a hand so small it made Piers's eyes water. You have the March look again, she said without turning round. I have no look. You have. It comes over you when I ask how you came to be at my window, and you have never once answered me, and I have let it go 4 times because a woman in an attic cannot afford to be proud. She closed the book. I am not asking now. I am telling you that I have noticed, and that I do not like it, and that when this is finished you will tell me. When it is finished, Piers said, I will tell you everything I have ever done. That may take longer than the law does. They were standing perhaps 2 feet apart in a room under a hot roof, and the sun came through the small dirty window and lay across the boards between them, and neither of them moved into it. He thought afterward that he could have said it then. He could have taken the half-sheet out of his coat and put it in her hand and had done. He had Dunnage's letter by heart instead. She must not be able to say she was told of it. She must not be able to be led. The strength of the thing is that it has lain 8 years on a shelf where no one could reach it, and he was so pleased with the strength of the thing that he forgot whose voice was on the paper. He rode to Ambleford the next morning to swear his own affidavit before the magistrate, because it saved 4 days. He had it done by noon. He told the magistrate, a gouty and entirely honest gentleman, exactly what he had: the letter, the book, the lot number, the sale catalogue of 1812. The magistrate was much struck. The magistrate said it was the most extraordinary thing he had heard in 40 years on the bench, and that he should have to look at the schedule of the commission, and that he would take a glass with him before he went. The magistrate dined at Fenwick Hall on Thursdays. He was the late Sir Marcus Fenwick's cousin. Piers did not know that until the Friday, and by then it was 11 o'clock at night, and he was standing on the leads in front of an attic window with the casement swinging open, and the room behind it was empty. The bed was stripped. The tray was gone, the jug, the stack of books, the candle end in its saucer. The pencil had rolled into the corner. Behind the head of the bedstead, the 9 years of scratched days went on counting in the dark, 5 and 5 and 5 and 5, all the way back under the eaves. Suki Ma was waiting for him at the bottom of the bell-wire panel with a candle and a face like a fist. 8 o'clock, she said. A post-chaise, a keeper, and a hard-faced woman with a strap she never had cause to use, and I will say this for my young lady, she walked down that stair on her own 2 feet, and she never gave them the pleasure of a sound. Her ladyship stood in the hall and watched. She had the order signed Bot de Vellicot. the same as signed the certificate in 1810, and never came within 4 foot of the girl then neither. Where? Kelby. The licensed house at Kelby, £40 a year, and her ladyship gave the keeper 5 guineas in the hall in front of me, and told her that Miss Fenwick was not to have paper. Piers went down to the drawing-room, where Lady Ottoline Vane was doing her netting. "Your Grace has been to Ambleford," she said without looking up. "My cousin the magistrate is a dear good man, and cannot keep a thing in his head for 2 hours together. He was full of you on Thursday. A letter, was it? In a book." She drew a thread through. "You may have the divinity as well, Your Grace, since you have been so patient. I find I do not want it in the house. You have moved a sane woman into a madhouse to keep an estate. I have removed a delicate person from a damp attic to the care of a licensed physician, on the advice of her doctor, at considerable expense, and I have done it in front of my servants and my magistrate, and every word of that is true, and every word of it is written down." Lady Ottoline looked up at last, and her eyes were as calm as a shut door. "That is the difference between us, Your Grace. You have a scrap of paper and a great deal of feeling. I have documents." He did not sleep at all. In the morning he had the horses out and was on the Kelby road before 6, with Dunnage's name and half his fortune ready to be spent. And he got 11 miles and was turned back by the carrier's cart coming the other way with a note in it, and the note was not from Dunnage. It was 3 lines in pencil, in a hand so small it made his eyes water, written on the back of a bill of lading and passed out of a window at Kelby to a man who took bread there on Saturdays. "Do not come to Kelby. Do not pay them 1 shilling. The moment you pay, I am your business and not my own, and every man on that jury will hear it. I have written this morning to the Lord Chancellor, demanding the commission and the jury, and to the post office at Falmouth for the sailing lists of the packets, 9 years of them, and I have signed both in my own name. I have been spoken for by other people since I was 16. On the 9th of June I shall be 25. Let me be examined, and let me answer for myself, and stay at the back of the room. A.F. You will want to look at me," Alethea Fenwick said. "Do it now, all of you, and get it done, and then attend to what I say, because I have waited 9 years to say it, and I do not mean to compete with your curiosity. The assembly rooms at Ambleford held 200 people on the 6th of June, and had 400 in them. The commissioner sat at a table on the days with his clerk, 12 jurymen, a corn factor, 3 farmers, a saddler, the rest tradesmen of the town, sat along a bench with their hats on their knees. Lady Ottoline Vane sat in the front with her counsel, in grey silk, looking like sorrow itself. Piers stood at the back by the door, where she had told him to stand, and did not move from it for 5 hours. They had brought her from Kelby that morning in a closed chaise with a keeper. She stood in the open floor in the made-over grey dress, thinner than she had been in May, and let 400 people look at the marks the smallpox had left on her face until the looking began to shame them. "Miss Fenwick," said the commissioner, "you understand why you are here?" "I understand that 12 men are to decide whether I am a person or a piece of property." "Yes, sir. I have been in an attic since 1811, sir. Ask me anything at all. It is the first conversation I have been offered in 9 years, and I intend to enjoy it." Lady Ottoline's counsel rose. He was a smooth, sorrowful man who never once raised his voice, and Piers, at the back with his fists in his coat pockets, learned in the next 2 hours exactly how a person may be destroyed politely. He put the certificate of 1810, 2 physicians, sworn before 2 magistrates, a lady of 19 found melancholic and incapable. He put the affidavit of a devoted stepmother. He put the 36 letters in a bundle, tied, docketed, and said the family had told the world a kind fiction about Lisbon, rather than expose a poor unhappy girl to the pity of the county, and that all their evidence was in these documents, and documents did not weep or perform. "Sir," Alethea said to the commissioner, "may I ask questions of the doctor?" Dr. Velicott was 60 and very unhappy in the chair. "Doctor, on the 4th of April 1810, where did you examine me?" "At Fenwick Hall." "In what room?" A pause. "In the passage, I believe. Outside your chamber." "How long?" "It would be some minutes. 4, 5, perhaps 4 minutes." "And what did I say to you in those 4 minutes?" "You said nothing." You were much withdrawn. I was 3 months in the smallpox, and my father was dead, and my face was new to me, and a strange man came to the door and asked me if I knew the king. Alethea said. I said nothing. What was your fee, doctor? 2 guineas. Who paid it? Lady Ottoline Vane. She let that stand for a moment and then said, Thank you, doctor. I am sorry for you. I do not think you did it for the money. I think you did it because it was a great deal easier than asking twice. And the room made a low sound like a held breath let out. Then she broke Lisbon. She asked the clerk to read the dates of the 36 letters aloud, and he read them. She asked the post office clerk from Falmouth, whom she had written for herself from Kelby, in pencil, on the back of a bill of lading, to read the sailing days of the Lisbon packet for 9 years. And one by one, 36 times the dates did not meet. The packets sailed on the 5th and the 20th, and every letter she had ever been made to write was dated on a day when nothing left Lisbon at all. I chose the dates, Alethea said. It was the only thing in that room that was mine. 9 years of impossible letters, gentlemen, and she has carried them round the county in her reticule, and read them out in drawing-rooms, and not one person ever looked at a date, because nobody looks at anything belonging to a woman who is supposed to be mad. The council rose again, unhurried, and did the cruel thing. A pretty story, and told very calmly. Too calmly, gentlemen. I do not doubt the lady is clever. The melancholic often are. Here is what she has not got. She has a duke at the back of this room, an attorney in London, and 3 weeks of preparation. She can show us what she is today, in company, coached and dressed. She cannot show us one line of her own mind, written by her own hand, unwatched, between the certificate of 1810 and this April. Not a letter, not a journal, not a scrap. There is nothing in the world in that lady's hand that her family did not stand over. 9 years of silence, and she asks you to fill it with her word. Alethea stood in the middle of the floor and looked at the jury for a moment, and Piers saw her hands close and open once. He is right, she said. There is nothing. I know it better than he does. I have thought about it every day since I was 17. Miss Fenwick. No, sir. Let me finish, because there is one thing more, and it is the last thing I have. She lifted her chin. In the autumn of 1811, they made me pack my father's library for the sale. It was the only work they ever let me out for, and there was a woman at the door the whole time. And I wrote a letter, 1 sheet, in my own hand, with nobody standing over me, and I told it the truth. My name, the attic, the door locked at 7, the Lisbon letters, the 11 months I had counted. And I sewed it in under the pastedown of a book, and I did not know which book, because I did it in the dark with a needle out of my sleeve, and the carts went in the morning. She turned and looked along the 12. Somewhere in England there is a stranger's shelf with my letter in it. I have thought of it every single day for 9 years, and it is the only thing I have ever had that was hope and not counting. I do not know whether the book was burned or sold for waste, or is in a nursery with the plates cut out. I do not know whether any living soul on this earth has ever opened it. At the back of the room, the Duke of Marchbourne took his hand out of his coat and stood away from the door, stirred, and 400 heads turned round. I opened it. Bring it up here, said the commissioner, and be sworn. Piers came up the room between 400 people and put 3 things on the table: a small volume bound in calf, a printed catalogue, and a half-sheet of paper folded so long that the creases had gone soft as cloth. Buffon, the 2nd volume, from the library of Sir Marcus Fenwick. It was lot 409 in the sale at Fenwick Hall in the spring of 1812. The lot is in that catalogue, and the ticket is still on the spine. I bought the lot with 300 others, and it has stood in a gallery at Marchbourne for 8 years. On the 9th of March this year I took it down, and the pastedown lifted, and this was sewn in beneath it, and I read it, and I have carried it since. Read it to the court. He read it. He got as far as I am kept in the north attic of this house, and had to stop, and the clerk offered to take it from him, and he shook his head and finished it himself, 'cause it seemed to him the least he could do, and it was certainly the last. Dunnage was sworn to the catalogue and the provenance. The letters from Lisbon were laid beside the half-sheet, and the schedule of rents she had corrected in pencil in May, and the 3 lines in pencil from Kelby, and the corn factor on the jury, who dealt in signatures all day long, looked from one to another and said, "It's the same hand, sir. It's the same hand all through and no more mad than mine. There is one more thing the court should have," Piers said, "and it is against me. Your Grace, I have had that letter since the 9th of March. I kept it back 3 weeks on advice, because I was told its strength lay in Miss Fenwick's not being able to say she had been told of it. She asked me 4 times what had brought me to her window. 4 times I would not say." He set his hand flat on the table. "On the 18th of May I swore an affidavit before a magistrate without telling her, and that magistrate dines at Fenwick on Thursdays, and she was taken to Kelby that Friday and has been 19 days in it. That is mine, not her stepmother's. I decided what she should be told, for her own good, by men who knew better, which is what has been done to her since she was 16, and I did it in a better coat and called it prudence." He picked up the half-sheet and crossed the floor and put it into Alethea Fenwick's hand. "It is not evidence," he said. "It is your letter. It was never mine, and I am sorry, and I have no explanation that will bear saying twice. The jury were out for 18 minutes. They found that Alethea Fenwick, spinster, was of sound mind, capable of managing herself and her affairs, and had been so at every time material to the inquiry. The certificate of 1810 was discharged, and the Commissioner directed that the affidavit, the certificate and the 36 letters be sent to the law officers with a note of his own. What became of Lady Ottoline Vane was slow and public, and none of it happened at Fenwick. She left the county before Michaelmas. Dr. Vellicott gave up his practice and wrote a letter to the newspapers which nobody had asked him for and which was, on the whole, honest. Alethea Fenwick came of age 3 days later, on the 9th of June, and the estate vested in her absolutely, and she went home in a hired gig with Suki Marr beside her, and did not send for anybody at all. Piers went back to Marchbourne and had 509 volumes packed. They went north in 11 carts over 4 days, the Buffon, the Herbals, the Very Bad Divinity, every book his money had taken out of that house in 1812, and with them a paper conveying them absolutely to Miss Fenwick of Fenwick Hall, and one line, "They were always yours. I shall not come unless you send for me." She did not send for him in June or in July or in the autumn. He heard things as men do. That the north attic door had been taken off its hinges and burned in the yard, and the room left exactly as it was, the plaster with its 9 years of scratches never touched, because she said a thing like that ought to be looked at and not tidied. That Suki Marr was housekeeper and had a bell of her own and rang it a great deal. That Miss Fenwick of Fenwick was seen at the Ambleford market on a Tuesday buying candles, and looked people in the face. And that 1 or 2 of the drawing rooms which had been so sorry about Lisbon found themselves not at home to her, and were noticed doing it, and did not enjoy the year that followed. The note came in March, on the anniversary of the 9th, and it had one line in it. "Your Grace, there is a wine stain on the frontispiece of my second Buffon, and I find I want to argue with somebody about the spider. A.F. He was at Fenwick in 2 days. She met him at the top of the front steps with the wind taking her hair about, and neither of them managed anything graceful. 'You did not write again,' she said. 'You told me to stay at the back of the room. I have been trying to learn where the back of the room is. You have overdone it by about 9 months. Alethea folded her arms. "I did not send for you sooner because I had to find out what I was when nobody was arranging me. Not my stepmother, not a doctor, not a duke with a letter in his pocket. I have had a year of being the only person who decides. I am extremely fond of it, and I do not mean to give it up. I have never once wanted you to. Then say the thing you came to say, and understand that I shall want a week to think about it, and that I may want the week in writing. Marry me," Piers said. "Take the week. Take a year. I have been buying other people's libraries since I was 15 because I could not bear an empty shelf, and I have not wanted anything of my own until I stood in your attic, and I would rather argue with you for 30 years than agree with anybody else." She took 8 days. She wrote it out on both sides in a hand so small it made his eyes water, and the answer was at the bottom. They were married at the parish church at Fenwick in the June, and Suki Marr cried in the 3rd pew and denied it afterward. They kept both houses and quarrelled at which had the worst chimneys. The 9 years on the plaster stayed on the wall unpainted. She took people up to see it when they asked. and she always answered the question they were too polite to put, which was whether she still counted. "Every day," she said. "I count the good ones now. I am somewhere in the 400s and I am 3 days out, and I do not intend to correct it.